Hello, today we're going to talk about a couple different things, mainly the mindset of how to get rich and also a little bit about how to make more money and how to budget your money. So let's start out with today's lesson. It's going to be a little bit about money management and how to turn your income, your everyday work, into wealth. So you retire wealthy. This is a cutout specifically from the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. This is pretty much the only thing I remember, but it's very valuable. Okay, so there's different ways that you can make money, and we'll go through this in just a second. So the first thing that we should talk about is the difference between being rich and being wealthy. So being rich is you make a lot every month, and being wealthy is you finish the month with a lot of money. So you could have a $5 million property and work minimum wage, which would mean you're wealthy, but you're not rich, and you can make $20,000 a month and be in debt. And that, depending on the debt, it probably means you're rich but not wealthy. So just remember that for this video. Now, there's different ways that you can manage your money, which is pretty much just budgeting. But the main thing that you want to understand is this. You have money that comes in, you have money that goes out, and then you have the leftover, which is like your saving or your money for later. Okay, so money coming in, that's your job, your business. Money going out, that's your basic living, your wants, your needs, if you want the new game, if you want to get some food for the month or whatever. And your money for later is either future spending, retirement, whatever. At the end of the day, all money is going to be spent. It's meant to be spent. So you're just picking when you're going to do that. Is that the same month or is that in 20 years from now? Okay, so like we talked about, this example here, the more extreme part of this is, money coming in just means make more money, spend less money, and you finish with more at the end of the month. And you can pretty much do this for everything. You could do all your budgeting by following this. You put how much you made in the last 2 weeks or last month, how much did you spend, and it should equate to how much is left over. Now, it's the leftover part that's a little more important, but we're going to start with money coming in. So going back to what I said originally with the Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad Poor Dad book, this is what he put. You can be an employee, a sole proprietor, a business owner, or an investor. So let's take a look at these. So an employee is not bad. It's low risk. You're guaranteed to get paid every 2 weeks, but your income is fixed and your hours are fixed. So you could, work more and get paid the same amount, or work less and get paid the same amount. Sole proprietor is a little better. You can work harder to get paid a bit more, but it's higher risk. It's inconsistent if you're going to get paid. You're kind of a slave to the people that show up. You kind of have to work whatever hours that they call you. It gets a little tougher. Now, the upgrade to that is the owner. The owner is you have employees under you that make it a bit more steady. You probably have a bit more consistent income, but it's still variable and the hours can still be variable. You're on the hook for a lot more. It can be very stressful. The best one out of all of these is the investor. Now, investor can be between low risk to super high risk, but a lot of times it's pretty medium. The most important thing is that it compounds. So the more money you put in, the more money you get. It's not in a linear way that we'll look at in just a second. It's not as much of a stair step. It grows based on all your work that you've put in. Now, and also technically, it takes very little hours. It could take 2 seconds if you really want. You just click buy and you just click sell. Now there's the research part and the doing your own, due diligence and things like that. But at the end of the day, it takes very little effort and very little time to become an investor. So that going back to what we had seen at the start. So the employee, the sole proprietor, and the owner are all focused on money coming in. At the end of the day, we just want as much to finish at the investor level, which is our money for later. That's just how we're storing it. That's what we're going to use when we're older. And we're hoping that the money that we put in at the start is more or is less than the money that we finish with. Okay. So like mentioned, doesn't take too much effort, doesn't take too much time, and it grows on itself. And we're going to see what that means here. So compound interest, this is a good example. If you invest $1,000 a month for 30 years, you'll finish with $2 million. You would have contributed $360,000 and your investments would have grew $1.7 million. So you would have made $1.7 million by only putting $360,000 in. Now, this is not perfect numbers. These are, estimates. But what's important is that it's a percentage, right? So if we look at these numbers here, I know there's a lot of numbers. Just understand this: we put $12,000 a year. Okay, for 30 years, that's 360,000. Our investment, though, grows more and more and more every year because it's a percentage of the total amount. So it's not just a percentage of last year, it's a percentage of last year and all the years before that. So it keeps growing on itself and growing and growing and growing. That's how your 360,000 could lead to a total of 2 million, or it'll grow 1.7 million without you having to do much. And again, that's only by clicking buy and clicking sell. Realistically, this is just clicking buy. You don't have to do anything else. And if you pick one stock, you can just click buy over and over for the same thing, and it will take you 2 minutes at the end of the day. So that's why so many people lean towards the investor standpoint. So what can you take from this? The most important thing is, of course, make as much money as possible, spend as little as possible, and invest for your future, or invest for another day in your future. And this just means increase your income, budget, and know your spending. So know how much you're spending, kind of keep track of that. Another important thing could be to pay yourself first. So when you get your paycheck, let's say right away you say, I'm putting $500 to investments and all the rest I can spend. But I know the first thing I'm going to do is put money away for my future. That's a good way to do it. A lot of people have different strategies. That's just one that you could potentially use. And again, always invest in your future. It doesn't mean that you have to take everything out at once. You could kind of dip into that if you want to get a new car, maybe a house. Those are also investments into your future. But just know that all it takes is, you have a certain amount of money coming in, you have a certain amount of money going out, and your leftovers is, what's left over. And you decide what to do with that. A lot of times investing can be your best bet, but it changes based on the way that you invest and, what you decide to do. At the end of the day, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't actually have a financial advice certificate or anything like that, but I've made and lost thousands in pretty much every single market that you can think of. Now, if you want to chat with me, I'm always open to questions in my Discord, or if you know me personally, you can just give me a call. I'm also always open to talk. And this was how to get rich/wealthy. What are some mindsets? What are some things to consider? How to budget and how to go from there.